Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The mayor has called the special council meeting to order. Vice Mayor Kaplan,
Here.
Councilmember De La Cruz,
Here.
Councilmember Groves,
Here.
Mayor Lindsay,
Here.
Councilmember McCormick,
Here.
Councilmember Moss,
Here.
and Councilmember Petros.
Here.
We do have a quorum, Mayor. If we may please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item, Mayor, is a discussion regarding 122224 Crandon Boulevard, also known as Entry Block.
Jenny, 1 second. I believe that our council would like to bring something up, housekeeping matter, before we start that discussion.
Before we start the discussion, I just want to call an executive session in the case of John C. Gilbert versus the Village of Key Biscayne et al., case number 2018-030808CA1 in the 11th Judicial Circuit. We're calling this executive session to seek advice concerning this litigation, and the time and date of that meeting will be occurring at a different at a time in the future. The clerk will reach out to you.
Thank you. And now, thank you, Madam Clerk.
Now is the discussion regarding 1222 Crandon Boulevard, also known as the Entry Block.
Council members, Madam Manager, would you like to start with this, or?
Sure. Good evening, Mayor, council members. Good to see you all. So the objective of this evening's meeting is to discuss the opportunity of the Entry Block. There was a sunshine meeting held last Friday. In attendance was Frank Kaplan, Luis De La Cruz, Brett Moss, and Katie Petros, who was not able to participate in the discussion because of the sunshine provision. Also, Mario and his client were there, and Don Ellisberg were there, and Melissa from the foundation popped in. There was some initial discussion about how to proceed with the Entry Block, and I think today we are seeking direction on how the council wants to proceed with this opportunity.
Terrific.
Frank.
As I suggested and we all discussed, I think we should be delegated the responsibility with support of our legal counsel to go do your best to define price parameters, bridge the gap as we discussed, and when you feel like you're ready to bring back a proposal, do so. That's the way I think we should proceed. Since we met, we've got an appraisal. We're not guessing at what it would say anymore because we've got it. We discussed the utilization of that appraisal at our sunshine meeting just before it came in. You remember from the minutes how we talked about using it. And I think that's what you should do.
Frank, I completely agree with you. From our past experiences in trying to negotiate transactions, that is really the only way of handling it effectively. We need one person that is a designee who has the authority. I believe under resolution we have already, actually under the land acquisition ordinance, we have amended and the authority is there, and that seems to be the way that things work the best. So I think that's the right strategy. Gary and then Luis.
I agree with the strategy, but I think there should be some sort of guidance from up here as far as what the parameters are and what we're willing to do. And I understand it's a very sensitive thing to talk about in public, but we are in a public meeting and we do have to talk about it. The problem I see, and as you all probably know, I've been kind of working on this for over a year now, with the owners of the property, with their attorneys, having various meetings. And I think that we just need to be a little bit candid about a couple of things. Number one, they have an appraisal, I think, that came in at $21 million. Our appraisal came in at between $8 and $9.5 million. That's a fairly significant gap. Our appraiser brought out a lot of different things that he believed were incorrect on the owner's appraisal that resulted in an overvaluation. We know that the owners purchased this property for $15 million, and I think they've got probably another $2 million in soft costs in it. So there's a very wide void between our appraisal and their appraisal and our appraisal and what they paid for it. And that always makes for a fairly tough negotiation. I think from our position, and I believe we have a very competent and very well-respected appraiser who did our work, I think from our position, we definitely want to buy this property because there are several different things we can do with it. But on the other hand, we have to be very careful that we don't pay more than we believe it's worth, because we owe it to our constituents to make sure that we get a good value for anything we do, especially a major capital acquisition. And I'm just going to throw out where I stand on this. I believe that there's no way they're going to get anywhere near their asking price. I think they've listed it already at $17 million, because the property just isn't worth that. They can't do anything with the property to justify spending $17 million on ground and then having to build something that produces income. They can't build anything on it because of our zoning that justifies that. So to me, I think we should make a good faith effort to purchase it, and I think the upper end of our appraisal should be the limit of what we're willing to spend, and I think that should be the direction. If in fact we can't purchase it for that price, I don't believe they're going to be able to sell it for anywhere near what they're looking for, and there are other ways to acquire the property if we need it for village purposes. So I think what we really need to do is to conclude this thing. We've been dancing around for quite a while on this topic, and I think we need to have our manager and our attorney negotiate in good faith, but find out whether or not we're going to be able to make a realistic deal from our perspective. And if they can't, then talk about the other alternatives, because we can't keep going in circles with this. And if we're going to try to make some plans for definite use of this property, we really need to know if and when we're going to get it. So that would be my input. I know that was a little bit of a lengthy input, but I think it's important to get that out so that our manager and our attorney will have a little bit of guidance, at least from
your perspective, sure.
Exactly.
Thank you, Gary. Luis and then Katie.
So I agree with everything that's been said so far. Here is my input. The problem with this particular property has always been the ingress and egress, that you can only enter it through Crandon Boulevard. And that's what makes this property almost useless from a commercial perspective, because you have to spend so much money developing it, and then no commercial endeavor is going to do it in a situation where people have to leave Key Biscayne in order to come back into the property. But the Oasis is for sale, and I think that it makes absolutely all the sense in the world for us to go after both of these properties. And I really do believe that that is what should come out of this meeting. You know, I know that it was only set for the 5:30 Crandon, but I know that the entry block people are negotiating with the Oasis people, and I think that that's what we need to do. I think we need to approach it from both ends, and I think that that will make that property worth it for us. I always had a problem with paying much money at all for this property because of the ingress and egress issue, that it was going to be that difficult for us also, even if we have a cultural center or whatever it is that we might put on there. It's still going to be very difficult for our guys to get in and out. So I want to add that our staff and our attorneys go after both properties, either either through the entry block people and then they're negotiating with the Oasis, or for us to go for a offer on each of the two properties and contingent upon getting the other one. I think that's the way to do it.
Thank you. Katie?
Okay, a couple of things I just wanted to add. First of all, this entry block land is just under 59,000 square feet, and I think people should know that. It's also, I believe, contiguous with Crandon and Calusa, which may provide some opportunities. The second thing is the Oasis property, if I remember correctly, is about 9,000 square feet. So it's significantly less. I also agree with most of the points that have been made up here. I would defer or disagree slightly with what you're saying, because as far as trying to do both of these for sure at once, I feel like we've gone very far down the road with this one particular property. I wouldn't want to have everything fall apart based on the Oasis property too. I think it's still very valuable to us as a community to have that entry block with or without the Oasis. And I would agree pretty much with what Gary had talked as far as a starting point. If the Oasis comes into play, then we can have that discussion too, but I would keep it more narrow than broad at this point.
Fair enough. Anyone else?
Do you have issues with them exploring and beginning preliminary conversations with Oasis?
No, I just wouldn't want it to
Be contingent?
not only that, but I wouldn't want it to delay the discussions and the final decision on this entry block piece.
Okay. Luis?
I just want to make sure that you understand my position. I don't think that the other property is worth anything what I think you guys think it's worth unless we have the Oasis property. So for me to be able to agree to on a purchase or even financing in order to purchase it, I would have to almost say they both have to be in the package.
Okay.
Just want to make sure everybody knows where I'm at.
Fair enough. Okay.
So on the Oasis, we should engage in that negotiation
As well.
simultaneously, directly with the owner, right now.
Now, I think that would be wonderful, but I am not, I am in support of going forward with or without the Oasis. I think it would be optimal, but it's not a deal breaker for me.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
opportunities come at different times and they might not always align, but if we have, the property that we're going to use more than, and that we value more than, those opportunities may come at another time.
There are planning and price considerations that are altered if we are a successful bidder on
Correct.
either of these properties,
Correct.
even if it's not both simultaneously.
Correct.
That is true.
Well, folks, Madam Manager and,
Are we going to open to public comments?
yes. Do you have any other questions for us?
I think that we would probably want to get like full.
One-on-ones?
No, well, clearly we'll do that, but we want to just have direction that, I mean, I think there sounds like a general consensus, but if there'd be a motion just to give us the authority in a second.
Move.
But again, I would like to listen
You'd
to
rather
the
listen to
public
public
comments. I'd like to respond on this,
Absolutely.
but I was waiting for the public.
Fair enough. We're done with our discussion for now. I will open this up for public comments. I have one person signed up. I don't know, Jenny, if you have anyone else. So one person. Bill Stevens? You're it?
You're speaking for everyone.
Oh, okay. I hope I represent him well. Bill Stevens, 159 East Enid Drive. Very good point Louis and Gary made. 2 points I was going to reiterate is the entry block property really isn't worth anything without northbound resident ingress, right? For a resident to get to the property right now,
Your wife
they have
is
to
saying
leave. Oh. Wait a second. This is the Michael Dukakis.
No, you're good. You're Bill.
You
Sorry,
might
that
be,
was
All
your
right, bend over.
Mic is fine.
That better?
Your mic-
Okay.
you might want to turn
wasn't
around
the
and
mic, it was the
rethink what
wife.
you're saying.
Okay. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
You sound a little like Dukakis, but keep going.
All right, thanks. Councilman De La Cruz's point's very well taken. The entry block property is really not worth anything because residents going northbound can't access the property unless they do a U-turn at Calusa. So I would strongly encourage the council to consider tying in the Oasis property, which provide that access via Harbor Drive. The price, I think Councilman Gross made a great point. With the property is permanently crippled by this northbound resident ingress problem. So if you bid any more than the land appraised value in Miami-Dade, it's $9.95 million. The appraisal came in between 8 and 10 million roughly. I think that's a fair price, but I think moving ahead to purchase the entry block without solving the northbound resident ingress problem now, before we purchase it, makes a lot of sense. Because right now, as it stands now, residents have to leave the key and come back on to access the property.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Tony, please, I'm sorry I do not have your sign-in sheet.
I put it there.
That's, please come forward.
Yeah. Hi, Tony Cameo, 151 Crandon Boulevard. Before I say what I'm going to say, if that piece of land needs an entry and you negotiate only for the entry block, the other seller is going to hold you hostage, knowing that you need it. So if you're going to negotiate for both of them, not for one. This doesn't make any sense. That aside, I think the council is, again, going about this, putting the cart before the horse. And that's because if we asked everybody here what you want to do with the land, we'd get 7 different answers, possibly. We need to have a master plan in the village. We need to prioritize, based on the master plan, where we need to invest and what we need to invest in. Whatever facilities we want to add to the village, where they should go. To buy a piece of land and then think about what to do on it later, I don't think is the right approach. And when we look at what of our greatest needs are our schools, if we're talking about investing $8, $9, $10, $12 million, where should that money go if not to improving our schools? And the entry block has nothing to do with our schools. I think that's why we need to have a master plan, so we put our priorities in order and everybody decides on how to proceed with that. So I would be opposed to moving forward with purchasing the entry block. I do not see the urgency, the need to do this, other than people have complained, well, we may not like what's put there. I think we have plenty of time to deal with that issue. And so I would be opposed to moving forward until the council has had a chance to develop a master plan and maybe wait for the new council to come in, which is going to be a major change of people on the council, and to reconsider all of this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do I have any other speakers? Thank you all for coming, by the way. It's great to have our residents participate in process and weigh in. With that, do I have a motion?
Can I make a comment quickly?
Oh,
the $6 million that we have in reserve, I know we asked this before, it can only be for purchase of land. Is that correct? For recreational or park uses, my understanding.
Yes, please.
So I can read you so that we're all clear based on, so the disbursements from the Pros Land Trust Fund shall be made only for the following purposes, and there are 4 items here. Number 1, acquisition of properties which have been approved for purchase or lease by the Village Council in accordance with the provisions of this chapter. 2, improvements to the property which enhance the recreational and open space purposes for which the land was acquired. 3, all costs associated with each acquisition, including but not limited to appraisals, surveys, title search work, real property taxes, documentary stamps and surtax fees, and other transaction costs. And number 4, any other purpose upon the unanimous approval of the entire Village Council.
I mean, the way I look at it is that we have $6 million sitting in the bank. What is the best use that we can put that money towards? And
And it's restricted funds.
and it's restricted. For me, land seems like it's always a valuable purchase. There's always a need for something somewhere in land, and we have money. So I think that, I'm interested in seeing where the negotiation goes and to see if we can put that money to use. Let's see. And I agree with Councilmember Dela Cruz and the others that the entry, the Oasis is an important key to the value of that land and the use of it in the future.
Thank you. Gary, you wanted to close.
I did. I just have to say a couple of things. I completely agree that we need a revised master plan and a land use plan, and I've been pushing for that for 2 years. But I don't necessarily think one has anything to do with the other. The fact that we're not sure what we would do with that property doesn't mean we don't have multiple potential uses for it that would benefit this village. We do. And we just don't know for sure right this moment which one of those we would use that property for. But we do have several very good uses for that property, number one. Number two, there isn't any other property left within our village limits. That's it, unless you're looking at possibly more pocket parks or things like that, which I don't personally believe we want to spend our money on. So this is the only significant piece of property left. We do have many uses for it that would benefit this village. And if we got the entry block and the Oasis, it would expand the number of uses we had. But that doesn't mean if we don't get the Oasis, we wouldn't still have some very good uses for that property. So I find this to be a little bit of a conundrum, because if we buy one and not the other might hold us over a barrel. If we try to go after them both at the same time, they both might hold us over a barrel. I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do this, because we don't have to have both. We can use one we couldn't use the Oasis without the entry block, but we could certainly use the entry block without the Oasis. And at the end of the day, if we can get this piece of property at a proper price, rest assured we'll put it to good use.
Fair enough, fair enough.
One
Yes,
other thing,
Katie,
let's also
and-
remember that if the village were to purchase land and turn it into a government use and it had a commercial use before, there's a very good chance that we could get some money, some reimbursement on a grant level, similar to what we did with the Pocket Park.
Great point, for
Correct.
sure.
Well, good. Good discussion. Madam Clerk, can you please call the question?
May I please clarify the motion?
Can we get clarification if
Motion is
it's,
to delegate the manager with the support of the lawyer's office
To negotiate.
to negotiate
On
on
both
both,
properties.
on
On
both,
both properties.
simultaneously. And then when you're ready to come back with a proposal, you'll bring it back.
Do we want to have a time frame?
Yeah, come back at maybe 1 o'clock tomorrow.
It's going to.
What's reasonable?
30 days?
Depends on a lot of parties, so
30
Well, we
days?
should set a time frame so that it doesn't
when
take
we
away
would
from
like it.
us.
then-
And if you get to us earlier, that's great too, maybe, but if we have a date by which we would like to see something, is that okay?
30 days.
30 days. Within
30 days? Is that good?
It's good with me.
Call it.
Please call the question.
I'm sorry, who seconded the motion?
Brett,
Thank you.
wasn't you?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Move to adjourn.
Thank you. Meeting is
Adjourned. We will be resuming with our budget hearing at 7 p.m., at 6 p.m., excuse me. Excuse me.